Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have a quorum, Doug Lee, Pete Chalecki, Brandon Hyde, and Rick Morrell are in attendance. We're calling for approval of the minutes from the December 1st meeting.
So moved. This is Doug.
Second, Brandon. All in favor, please state your name and say aye.
Doug, aye.
Pete, aye.
Aye. So moved. Communications,
I don't have any for you tonight.
old business. New business, show cause hearing, unauthorized land disturbance, 217 to 229 North Warwickes Road.
So this was brought to our attention by, I believe, the zoning officer originally. We've been out multiple times. You gave them approval probably a year and a half ago to build a single family home up there. And they came in, you approved a plan with E&S controls and whatnot. And we went up probably right before November 22nd, right before Thanksgiving. And it's just a mess. Had trees down everywhere, trees dropped into the wetlands. There was a little circular pocket toward the front of the property. And then there's another wetland along the back and the side by the Algonquin gas right away. So I've been out there already and met with the property owners, with Rich Shook, the zoning officer, and Brian Long, the city engineer. We've worked out a plan with them, which is kind of what my letter says we want them to do. So we're here tonight just to make it official. And if the commission has any changes they want to see or additions, then I'd ask that you make that part of your motion regarding the cease and correct order. I mean, they have a silt fence in place. It's not buried anywhere. There's a ton of rocks up there. So we said they could use a lot of the trees that they down. It's all garbage trees. It's all invasive growth. So we said they could chip a lot of them and put up a berm in places where they couldn't bury it and back it up against the silt fence, kind of tuck it and weigh it down there, or use hay bales. They did put hay bales in certain places, but then the guy that cut down the trees wrecked the silt fence in that smaller pocket towards the front. So I told them they have to pull any branches out of there by hand. No machines can go in there and restore that silt fence before they begin construction of the home, the foundation and whatnot. So they're not going to pull any stumps that are close to the wetlands or in the upland area. They did pull out some stumps that were in the area that was fine to do so. So those have to get out of there. And then there's other zoning public works issues. They've got 2 driveways cut out onto the road and they only had a permit for 1. And their construction entrance doesn't have the filter fabric underneath it. So
How long have you given them to respond?
they've already started doing some of the work. So I haven't been up there due to Christmas and New Year's, but we were out there the day before the Christmas break meeting. We met with them in person.
Thanks. A couple things. When did construction actually start in relevance to when you guys got?
That is a good question, because we were there before last Christmas, maybe before last Thanksgiving, and it was before they came before Wetlands. So we made them stop then, and then they came in. Yeah, they had cut in a little path to get onto the property from North Warwickes, and we stopped them then. Then they came in before you all got their permit, and then they've been back out. I don't know when it all occurred, because it's just kind of out of the way. Nobody's been up and around in that area.
So what was their excuse for
Their excuse was they hired a third party and the guy went kind of crazy with taking stuff down. So the clearing limits have been exceeded. We want them to pull in the silt fence even further than it was on the plan, based on what they already did in the field. And kind of shore that up and avoid the whole. If you're coming into the property from North Wawekus, the right-hand side has some wetland flags. And we want them to come in about 15 feet further than it said on the plan.
So safer, not, obviously not into the wetlands.
Right,
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Back into the buffer.
Yeah.
And the stuff that they cut went further than the limits. And was there any value to the stuff they cut? Should it be?
My personal opinion, there was nothing of value. It's all invasive overgrowth and there's maybe one tree up there that would be worth saving. That's in the middle that I don't believe they're gonna take down at this point. There's a tree that was cut that they tried to push over that's resting on the tree. So we told them they have to get that out because that's a safety issue.
Without seeing the value of the wetlands, and I can't recall, I mean, is there any?
I can bring up the aerial on the GIS if you
Yeah, I
want,
don't mean
and
to
I'll walk you
prolong
through
it,
it.
it's, you know, it's one thing when somebody screws up once, but pardon my French, when they do it twice, it's kind of frustrating.
Is there a portion of the property that needs to be replanted?
I would say in terms of trees,
Or ground cover to reduce any sediment, any runoff?
there was no grass or ground cover up there. It was all kind of scrubby brush, rocks. Let me just get up here for a second. So these two, this number 14 and 15. For the members online, are you seeing the GIS screen?
We are not.
Okay, let me change that. Can you now, Doug?
Yes.
So the pocket area is generally around here. And then there's some that kind of curve back along here and part of it's in this is the gas line right away. So it's already, a lot of the wetlands are already disturbed from the gas line. It runs right through them. So that this is all cleared. The driveway comes in, this is cleared. And then they have a second one coming out here. That is more of a public works matter. It doesn't come near the wetlands. They actually protected the wetlands here, except for that tree that fell into it that they pushed over, which has already been removed. And we told them they can chip a lot of this that was cut out and use it along the silt fence back here and to kind of buffer the silt fence in that pocket in the front. Try to give you a street view of this. This has to be pretty old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all
It's all,
kind of junky stuff here.
Okay, I'm good. You answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
Sure.
Just trying to understand the value of it. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of value to it, so. And they didn't really disturb the soil, excuse me. It was mostly, like you said, scrubby brush, so. It's just a matter of them understanding that. They gotta get BNS in control and they can't just be exceeding the limits of what we have.
Are there any other questions?
With this second sort of having to intervene, what's your confidence that the site owners will clean up their act going forward?
Pretty high confidence that they do a lot of work with Public Works. They do a lot of concrete work in the city as contractors. They're kind of familiar names. So we made clear what needed to be done, and they had their field guy out there with them. And we're well aware of it, so we'll be checking on it almost weekly, I would say.
Would there be any benefit to requiring a bond?
In addition to the original bond for the house construction,
Mhm.
I would defer to the commission if you felt that was necessary.
Now that I understand the area more, and I also understand they have more stake in the game since they do work with the city, and I realize this might affect their name. I think that is, if that's been made clear to them, then personally, I'm okay with that. At this point, you feel confident, then I'm good. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah, Dan, I think that's the question that we're asking you is, do you feel confident or not?
I'm confident that they'll correct it. It's their personal house that they're building, so I think they want to have it done right. And if we go back out a week or two from now and there's more violations, then I'll issue another letter and bring it back before you.
Okay,
Anticipate that happening. I anticipate them working with us. I would greatly prefer that as staff, so.
I would hope so.
I mean, we would all prefer that.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, we don't want it to become a situation that spins out of control.
Correct.
Third strike option.
Third strikes have a lot more teeth, but if you have confidence, then I'm happy with that, Dan. Thank you.
Do we?
I don't have any further questions.
So the decision can be one of three things: that it remains in effect, the order as is before you in the letter, you can revise it or withdraw it.
I move that the letter remains in effect as is until they address all the issues with it.
This is Doug, second.
There's a motion on the table. All in favor, state your name and say aye.
Doug, aye.
Pete, aye.
Brandon, aye.
Rick, aye. Unanimous. So moved. Show cause hearing unauthorized land disturbance regulated area 32 Hammond Avenue, Norwich.
This one is a little more of a mess. This, we discovered the building official was out there on the 9th. I'll just correct it. It's actually 36 Hammond Avenue. It's incorrect on the agenda. I apologize for that. I will try to bring it up for you on the GIS. I'm not sure. There's a street view over there. So what we have at this property is we had been out there earlier last year because a gentleman was looking to purchase it. It's a severely dilapidated home at the top of Hammond Avenue. If you're familiar with that area, it's off of East Main Street. There's the Ellis Ruley Park. It's up the hill from that. And the backyard is a wetland. Let's see. Oh, it is 32. Is it 32? No. 36. So here's a picture of the home. And it pretty much looks like that to this. So I had gone out there with the city engineer and the zoning officer because a gentleman was in looking to buy it. And we said, you know, you have your well is in the back, it's in a wetland, it's kind of partially exposed. The property is a mess, it's a disaster. So between then and December 9th, when the building official had gone out because they had shut the power off for obvious reasons, just based on the picture. The people that previously owned it, there was a stream, kind of a created stream that ran within a foot or two of the foundation. You could tell being out there that water had come down, it kind of comes down the hill from Preston behind it and had pushed in the foundation over the years. And it was a man-made kind of channel through the yard as people did. And then it hit city drainage that went under the road and then down the hill, kind of weaves down the hill and overspills. So between then and when we went back out, the people that owned the property previously buried that stream. They put a pipe in there and covered it with actual garbage from the property and then threw some dirt over it. So the gentleman that I sent this letter to, he was kind of, it's almost like a fraud situation. They told them that it was fine, they could do this and it wasn't a problem. So we went out there, the city engineer had been out there and he wants it obviously uncovered. He's okay with it being piped and covered, but he wants to see the pipe that goes there and not filled with garbage and debris from the yard. So it's kind of an intermittent stream wetlands issue. That's why it's before you all tonight. So for the order, the letter that I sent here, that's what it says. Stabilize the areas along the embankment of the watercourse, remove everything that was put in there to return the channel to its previous state, which I will tell you was not well maintained over the last 50 years. It was kind of the property owner, little by little, put stone in there and made it. And then work with the city engineer to develop some kind of piping system that matches up with what's under the road. It's a mess.
So the previous owner is the one at fault, yet the prior owner is the one that's receiving the cease and desist because he's caught the situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's dumped on him as the current owner.
And does the prior owner still own any land in the city or not?
I'm not sure. We could check with the assessors on that. And it's not necessarily relevant to this, but it's a thing where the property, they bought it for 25,000, he paid 50,000, and now he has this issue.
Was this channel developed by the landowners or by the city?
From what I understand, the channel was created by the property owner that owned it from the 1950s on, and he passed away and the home is just kind of in disrepair.
And he built that channel to keep water away from his house?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an old situation where you would not be able to build,
Today, no.
yeah, not remotely.
Well, it's got to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
It's messy.
What do they plan to do with the house?
He wants to live there.
In the structure as it exists today.
Yeah, he's trying to renovate it little by little. There was a pre-existing garage that was across the channel. The channel was probably, you could step over it. It wasn't a wide channel. There was when we were there earlier in the year, someone had taken an old oil drum type of thing and poured concrete over it to build a bridge. So it's just kind of a cobbled together urban thing. I don't know how, I don't have a technical term for it whatsoever,
We get the.
but I think you can picture. And the garage was falling over on itself and it was unsafe. And we think they took a lot of the stuff that was in the garage and buried it over this pipe that they put in. And we don't know if the pipe meets the roadway drainage or if it stops 4 feet short and it's gonna erode over time and there'll be a sinkhole. So the city engineer wants it uncovered.
Sure.
And he's fine with it being done properly.
In what shape is the foundation itself? I realize it's not entirely germane to the discussion, but I'm curious.
The honestly, Doug, the foundation is terrible. A lot of it is cinder block that's pushed, you could kick through. And then there's the older portion of the house, it looks like it's been added on to 2 or 3 times over the decades. And it's in rough shape. It's in really rough shape.
Is the house on the edge of being condemned?
Not necessarily my call to make, just looking at it. I don't know how it's inhabitable, but that's a building department call.
I realize it is outside the purview of our discussion. What I'm trying to get a sense of is whether or not we will see coming in the future an inland wetlands permit to redo the structure.
We would definitely want him to come back before you to do any repairs of that nature.
All right, so I don't have any further questions at this point.
Hearing no further questions, does someone want to move this IWW? Actually doesn't have one, does it? No. 36 Hammond Avenue.
So moved, no additional conditions added to the cease and desist order as shown.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion on the table. All in favor?
Doug, aye.
Pete, aye.
Brandon, I.
Rick, aye. Unanimous. Any other business?
No, we don't have anything else before you tonight.
And no other violations?
Not at this time.
Is there a move to adjourn?
So moved.
Doug, oh, Pete second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pete,
Doug, aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, so moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.